We are about to get into our proclamations, and we will be discussing, I believe, 4 different proclamations today that we are going to recommend changes to. There is a proclamation out there that we are not going to recommend a change to. However, we felt it appropriate to bring up this information to the commission. As most folks know, we do have a proclamation that deals with non-protected and species deemed destructive. That's where we set all of our regulations regarding wild hogs. And we just wanted to make it aware to the commission that something will be occurring here shortly. Within that proclamation, there's a section in there that allows anyone that's on a lease to be exempt from having to get on the landowner exemption. I'm going to read the information that's in there. It says, landowners who have hunting leases in effect as of September 15, 2011 may allow individuals authorized under the lease to assist in eradication efforts of wild hogs. Authorized lease members may use the following methods. And it goes on to say any weapon and ammunition legal for taking hogs. It allows the lease members to do whatever the landowners are allowed to do outside of having an exemption. The thing that we want to bring up and make the commission aware of is that there's a statement in that proclamation that says the authorization of lease members by landowners for wild hog eradication expires July 31st, 2013. So within a few short months here, anyone that is a lease member is no longer automatically exempted. Now, having said that, they obviously can get on the exemption if the landowner puts them on the exemption. And we did have a concession about a year ago or maybe more, which allowed those leases the extra help they needed to do hog eradication by saying that you could have up to 10 members or 10 people on the exemption up to 1,000 acres. And if for every 100 acres over 1,000, you're allowed 1 more person. So those large leases, which are 2,000 or 3,000 acres, you can have 20 or 30 people on your exemption. And so we just wanted to make the commission aware of this expiration date that is in the proclamation that contains the wild hog language. And our recommendation is not to open up this proclamation. Is there any discussion regarding that?
Yeah. We gave that deadline, one, because people had leases in place anticipating the opportunity to take hogs. Second, and it was I guess a 2-year period of time, was the opportunity to see how that worked out. My question for staff is, has any harm, as you all have seen it come, from allowing those leases to continue hunting hogs?
I may call on someone who feel like they can more appropriately address that, but I'll give it my best shot. We discussed this within our staff not long ago when I brought it to the attention regarding this expiration date approaching. And the epitome of our program, our wild hog program, is to remove the incentive to really stop the spread of wild hogs, stop people from moving wild hogs. And one of the root causes of that is this idea of it being fun and sport hunting. We believe there's a number of places out there that are still allowing these lease members to hunt for the sole purpose of sport hunting on those leases. And we felt it was a decision of our agency that it would suit us best if we let this expiration take place to remove that incentive of these large leases that are primarily set up for the sport hunting of hogs. And so it would be our recommendation to allow this to occur. That is one of our biggest things, and it's still not there. It's still going to take a number of years, but the idea of hunting hogs for fun is one of the root causes of the spread of hogs. And this goes a long way into combating that and to remove that idea of, hey, let's go hog hunting over here.
I'm not sure how to ask this question, so kind of bear with me, Daryl. I have a master's way of muddying the water. If someone is leasing land for the purposes of other game, whether it be a deer lease or otherwise, and people sign on to that lease, are those folks able to take a hog, an incidental taking of the hog on that property?
Once this expires, no, they would not. They would have to be put onto the exemption. And the landowner can sign up whoever he wants on that exemption. And those large leases, like I said, if you could add one person for every 100 acres over 1,000. And so the landowner can sign up pretty much everyone on their lease, especially those big leases.
Okay,
But no, they would not. Once this expires, then just because they're a lease member does not give them the ability to help with the hog eradication. They would have to sign up on the exemption. Am I correct in what I'm stating? Okay.
okay. Thank you. I'm gonna ponder that one. Thank you.
With that, if there's no other questions, what I'd like to do is begin the process of calling up our program coordinators to discuss the different proclamations they will be addressing. I apologize that we're going to have a slight change in schedule. Wildlife management area was supposed to be one of the last ones we talk about, but Tim White, who kind of coordinates our wildlife management areas, has to return home for some business, and I told him I'd try to get him out of here as quickly as possible. So I'd like to introduce Tim White, who is not just our waterfowl coordinator, but our wildlife management area coordinator, to talk about our wildlife management area proclamation and the recommendations, so forth.
Thank you, Darrell. Commissioners, I think on the agenda I'm the no-name person on there. But just to restate, I am the state wildlife management area coordinator as well as the migratory game bird coordinator. So I get to wear a lot of hats. You guys get to see me more than once a year. So, all right, let's get started. Our management areas, for the most part, are open with statewide seasons. We do have certain areas that we manage that have exceptions, that we manage a little more intensively or have special considerations. Some may have restricted to closed seasons, may have special youth hunts, dove hunts, or quota big game hunts. And what I wanted to present to you today were the significant changes to the management area proclamation. We do have just standard date changes for our regular calendar shift. We have some routine wording corrections and clarifications. And again, we're going to note any significant changes. So let's get started. Statewide changes to management areas. The first one, we have two. The first one is we're restricting access to caves on management areas. White nose syndrome is a fungal disease that's been affecting bats across the southeast, and it's got people very concerned, and so we are going to restrict access. If a caving group or a group has a need to get into a cave, they can seek approval from the area manager if they've got good justification for going in, and so we have a means for allowing people into those caves if they have a specific need. The second statewide change is we're closing all of our wildlife management areas. The quail seasons are going to close on January 15th. Our staff and management area folks felt like late season, our management areas have been hunted very hard, and that quail hunting during that late season starts to become additive and starts to be detrimental to our quail populations. So a proposal was made, and our agency recommendation would be to close quail hunting on management areas on January 15th.
When you say close to hunting, will the people still be able to train their dogs all on the wildlife management, but just not carry a gun, or will there be no?
I believe it wouldn't affect the dog training seasons. Those would be independent, I believe. All right, moving on. Region 1 had several areas that had significant changes, and some are more significant than others. We're making a change to Barkley Unit 1. While they got some construction going on, they're going to have archery-only hunting during that period of time within those impoundments where the active construction's going on those pump houses and various things. Commissioner?
Is the length of the construction period such that there's no way to work around the season itself?
I believe not. I believe they're going to be working during the fall on the actual pump house, and I believe it's just this fall. Region 1 could probably answer that. It wouldn't hurt.
If I've got to, you gotta. That's
Yes, this construction project is about a $750,000, $800,000 concrete structure, great big thing, and we hope it's done this fall, and we won't have to continue after the winter. But if the weather doesn't cooperate with us, it could continue beyond that.
Thank you. I just think it's important the public know this is not changing out pumps. This is a very significant
No, this is
construction project.
a major project.
Thank you so much.
Question now, if you get finished with it before the season, is there any way to reverse this?
I would assume that if you wanted to as a commission, you could modify a proclamation.
Yeah, but I'm talking about publicizing. I mean, if we get the word out in time if it was done before the season.
I don't see why not.
Moving on. In Camden Unit 2, we're adding a deer archery hunt there. Horns Bluff, we've adjusted some closure dates to allow some small game hunting. And an interesting part on Horns Bluff, there's a north unit on the opposite side of the road that's surrounded by private land. It's a small portion. And that land's not being used currently by waterfowl due to the hunting all around that area. So we're going to open that area up to waterfowl hunting since it's, again, being hunted by the private landowners around that small little portion of that unit. The main part of the refuge is across the road, and it's protected. So, and that's going to be hunted, I believe, on Saturdays and Sundays, if I'm not mistaken. I believe so.
Which one is that? You said
That would be that north unit of Horns Bluff, the small finger portion that's on the opposite side of the road. That's, again, it's, I believe, surrounded by private land.
I need to see a map, I think. I'd like to see a map. Somebody could help me out with that.
We can get you one. Parker Branch is an area that's been one of our wetland tracts that's going to be proclamated. So we're adding big game and small game hunting to that area. And then President's Island, there was a flood on President's Island a couple of years ago. And when Mississippi got out, our deer survey data shows the herd's been reduced by about 40%. So we're removing one of the deer archery hunts for now. And when the herd recovers, I'm sure that hunt will be reinstated. Any other questions on those before I move on?
President's Island is not the Bucknell, it's just the Sandoval.
Yes, sir. In Region 2, we have a new WMA called Headwaters that will be proclaiming and opening with statewide seasons. Laurel Hill had some minor changes. We added some bobcat, raccoon hunting, and we restricted the foot traffic only behind the gates during turkey season. That allowed the turkey hunters less disturbance during the season. Old Hickory, we added some dove days to the Bartons Creek unit to the dove field there. And at Percy Priest, we closed Unit 1 to nighttime dog training, and we allowed trucks and ATVs to be used off-road only to set up the field trial courses. Those are the Region 2 recommendations. Region 3, again, nothing major. We had some closures. Bridgestone Firestone is closed to the non-hunting activities during big game hunts. Catoosa had a 10-day wild hog control season that we've divided now into 2 5-day segments that we felt might be more effective than one 10-day segment. It felt like after the first 5 or 6 days they'd been pushed off the area. Yes, sir. The director just informed me that I'm going by region and you guys are going by alphabetical order and having a hard time keeping up with me. Yeah. I'm younger than I look. Cherokee South, we've increased some deer hunting days, added a day of raccoon, and removed some wording changed some wording regarding check-in on the POS machines. On Cordell Hull, we had a request by the Corps of Engineers to remove the Defeated Creek Rec area from the hunting zone. Enterprise South Nature Park, we've increased our antlerless harvest, decreased our buck limit, and we had to change the name of one of our hunts to Hunts for Warriors. I believe the Wounded Warriors was a copyrighted name we couldn't use. Fall Creek Falls, we increased deer hunts. Harp's a new WMA that we're going to open with statewide seasons. And on Hiawassee, we reduced our antlerless harvest. We added a turkey to the archery bag and reduced the deer quota hunts, or the deer hunt quotas. Also, on Region 3, Tellico Lake, we established a new Wares Bend unit, added a Tellico West unit. We added some deer hunts, and we closed the Wares Bend portion unit to some antlerless hunts. Also, on the Tellico McGee Carson unit, we've reduced small game hunting to weekends since it's a youth-only hunting there already. We felt like it weren't many kids getting out of school, shouldn't be getting out of school to go hunting during the week. And additionally, we reduced the bag limit on rabbits. North Chickamauga Creek, we've added a Hickson unit to the area of restricted area during waterfowl seasons. It's one of the newer functioning waterfowl areas. We have several other units that are restricted during the late waterfowl seasons to prevent disturbance, reduce disturbance. And we've closed dog training during that late waterfowl season on Hickson, Rogers, and Vandergrift units. Lastly, on Uchee Refuge, we've added a wheelchair-bound turkey hunt. Those are Region 3's recommended changes. And then moving on to Region 4, Foothills, we've closed to hunting March 1 through the 4th Friday in August, except for spring turkey season. Chuck Swan, we've eliminated 2 late turkey hunts and increased the quotas on the remaining turkey hunts. The late 2 hunts weren't very popular, so we've just eliminated those and added to the quotas on the earlier hunts. We've also increased the trapping days. Forks of the River, we've restricted days to non-hunting activity during the hunting season. Some of these areas have multiple use and multiple users, and so some of them have restrictions during hunting seasons to non-hunting activities. 4th Fractional Township, no dog training allowed during spring turkey season. Kiker Bottoms, we removed a deer hunt during muzzleloader and restricted dog training from March through October. Lick Creek Bottoms is one of the new waterfowl management areas over in Region 4 that we've been developing for years, and we've added some waterfowl hunting opportunities there. And McLaughlin Largen, I believe I said that right, is a new WMA that we're going to have big game, small game, and waterfowl opportunities on. Lastly, White's Mill, we've added snipe hunting, and we've closed to non-hunting activities during the late waterfowl seasons. Any comments or questions on those are the significant changes that we're recommending to management areas on all 4 regions.
Can you elaborate a little bit on what the waterfowl opportunities are going to be at Lick Creek? What is that agency's thoughts on that?
Region 4. I know we're having some areas going to open up on certain days of the week initially, and as we bring units on, they're going to add additional days.
That's what it is, Commissioner Mellon. David wants to, the area's going to get it's getting a lot of interest, and it's going to have a lot of interest, and he wants the hunts to be quality hunts. So he's going to hunt on Tuesdays and Saturdays, and then as we bring other areas on, we will rotate other days of the week. They may be open Wednesday and Monday or Wednesday or Friday or something like that as we add. So hopefully the birds can get in there, rest for a couple of days, and have some good hunts.
Or are they drawn hunts, or is that going to be first come, first serve?
Right now, it's first come, first serve, and we'll know more this time next year as to how well that's going to work. So
Do we have people spending the night up there to get first come, first serve in East Tennessee?
we were discussing how much a blind would go for at Lick Creek. We don't know yet. I guess we'll see.
Now,
I don't think we'll be having any questions of policing or anything, but I mean, it's just my experience of duck hunting in East Tennessee. There are passionate duck hunters, and if you give them an opportunity, and we're gonna put it as first come, first serve, I think it's gonna be a problem. I do. I think you're gonna have to go to a draw. I think it's gonna be more like Yellowknife and some of those other areas in Region 3.
I suspect that you're right, and David has been involved in these discussions on these waterfowl draws for that very reason, because we do think we're probably going to have to go that way. And like I said, once we get through this year, we'll have a better feel for what's going on. But demand's only going to increase as people find out that the opportunity is there. So we're prepared to go that direction, but
But this year it's gonna be.
This year's just going to be first come, first serve.
Okay.
When will you be bringing a proposal to commission as far as Lick Creek and the blinds? I mean, we're not voting on first come, first serve next month, are we?
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay.
That
So
would
it'll
be,
be
that'd be that'd be
August.
next time around.
Next time around?
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
Thank you.
All right. Any
Uh,
other questions?
I have one other question. I didn't know where the agency's stance are, as far as your discussion would be, as far as non-hunting multiple use WMAs. Are we getting closer to saying that we're gonna possibly create a permit for all users, whether they're hiking or bird watching or whatever? Where do we stand on that at this point?
We're a ways away from that. In our strategic plan, which the staff has seen, but we're about ready to roll out for the final draft for you all to see and then on to the public. That's one of the things that's addressed, and whether or not it's appropriate, what the fees would be and all that kind of thing. I think we all agree that it's appropriate in kind of the way to roll it out as they've done in Virginia and a couple other places is what we're looking at. But we also had to get a legal opinion on whether or not we could implement certain fees in certain areas. We've got that. Then we went to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and asked them about program income and how that would affect it. So there's a lot of things that we're considering, but the short answer is that we definitely are looking at that. We're just not at the point where we could really give you any details that would make any sense right now.
Well, it's just my opinion as the commission, we receive calls from non-hunting users, like horseback riders and all, and they're actually complaining that the hunting seasons are interfering with their use, and it's a little frustrating. So I think that if we're gonna represent the hunters of this state, and that's what this commission does, then I think that we need to let them know the WMAs, first and foremost, are for hunting if they're not gonna be helping foot the bill.
And we're looking at that very thing, and we're also breaking the land down in two different sections. Those that were bought specifically just with hunting and fishing money and hunting fishing dollars or excise tax that comes back off of those particular programs, and those that were bought through the Wetlands Fund or other public funds that were bought in addition to that. So it may be considered somewhat differently, just as they are on Royal Blue.
One last thing I'd like to bring up. Last year, the commission requested that we make a concerted effort to increase our dove field opportunities, both with leased fields and management area fields. In 2011, you can see we had 34 leased fields and 36 management area fields. And then last year, we increased that from 4 to 38 leased fields and from 36 to 45 management area fields. And the acreage, you can also see increased significantly number of acres that we leased. So just wanted to let you know that the crew went to work and found a lot more fields, planted quite a few more fields, and hopefully that we can keep it up.
Do you have any idea of your leased acres, amount of dove fields for 2013?
No, sir, we don't. We do, Trey, we've got $100,000 to spend each year on lease fields. And in years past, we didn't come close. We'd spend 70 or 80,000, but this past year we spent almost every dime. So hopefully we'll be able to spend all of that lease money again. And our management area fields, I think they're on track to try to plant similar number of acres as last year. So I don't know if I answered your question.
You answered it, and I think that last year, from what I heard, was really good feedback for people that participated in those hunts, and that they had a good time and successful hunts.
Well, that's one thing we did discover was that it's a significant number of people that use our management area and our lease fields. We used to think in the 1960s and 70s, we had over 100,000 dove hunters in the state. Well, we're down to probably 30,000 or so dove hunters in the state now. And if we have 6,000 or 8,000, 9,000 people of 30,000 on our fields, that's a third of our dove hunters are using lands that we provide, so that is pretty significant.
Thank you, Tim.
Before we get onto the big game proclamation, and we're still discussing wildlife management areas, I just want to remind the commission, I believe there might have been some comments from the public that we'd like to address.
Hello, my name's Jeff Perlacki. I actually own some property, as well as my family does, next to the Cummings Cove WMA. And we've been having access issues to our property. More so, the Cummings Cove WMA, TWRA posted signs along what's known as Etna Mountain Road, not allowing any motorized vehicles. Our problem is, in order to reach the back corner of our property, we have to utilize Etna Mountain Road. And we went to court, and there was an agreed order in 2010 that the road would continue as such to, and it was recognized in the court order to the Perlacki property corner, and state of Tennessee signed off on that court order. However, having this no motorized vehicle sign in the road prevents us from getting to our property, because I don't want to be ticketed, arrested, having my vehicle taken away from me, you know, I guess whatever steps TWRA would take on that. More so recently, the Marion County Commission recognized Etna Mountain Road as a public road. So, and that's for Etna Mountain Road as it continues all the way across the Cummings Cove WMA. So I guess I'm kind of looking for an answer as to, am I going to be ticketed if I'm on Etna Mountain Road? Am I going to be allowed to drive on the road without fear of, you know, TWRA coming along and I guess either issuing me a ticket, arresting me, whatever measures they're going to take? It's frustrating as a property owner when you're living in fear of trying to get to your property.
Would anyone like to address this?
Is Cheryl here? From what I understand, we were just advised of this morning, and obviously, as a commission, we can't really comment on it. I think it's going to take a little bit of time to develop a response. Cheryl, can you comment on Mr. Perlacki's discussion about the road closure on Etna Mountain? Yeah, we closed it, yeah.
I can comment because I won't say very much, if you don't mind, because I believe this matter will probably end up in litigation at some point. I hope not. I think we all hope not.
We would prefer not,
But,
yes.
because of that, I won't say a whole lot. But we being TWRA, recently learned that Marion County had declared a road across Cummings Cove WMA as public. We have had it closed for some time due to the erosion problems that y'all heard about several meetings ago. We recently learned or heard that this had happened, and I was in a conversation. There are two Mr. Palackis, so I don't know if I've been talking to you or...
Probably my brother, Steve.
Yeah, okay. I've been talking to Mr. Palacki via email. As a matter of fact, it was either yesterday morning or the morning before, trying to get some kind of official record of that vote, because the Attorney General has asked me for that. So my next step is to, and I just learned from John Mayer this morning that he got a letter from Marion County Commission this morning. So now that we have that, I'm going to be in consultation with the Attorney General's office about what our next step is. It's really it's premature at this point.
Sure, you're our attorney, and if you tell me you can't answer, don't answer. But if Marion County says it's a public road and we closed it, is Marion County, and you say there's erosion problems, is Marion County willing to spend the money to maintain that road and keep that road up?
Yeah, I can't answer it. I wish I could. I mean, I just don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
I think a large portion of the public would actually be willing to step in. This road, if you look at any of the historic maps in the area, it dates back to at least the Civil War. It's been around a long time, and, you know, imagine the changes that's been, you know, seen in that area over the course of time since then. I know erosion has been a key issue on the mountain. Off-roaders have been blamed for it, and we take a slightly different view on it, and that is TVA routinely comes along and sprays all their toxic chemicals, and we own Raccoon Mountain Caverns at the base of Raccoon Mountain, and the reason why we purchased the land was to help protect the watershed for the cave. And sadly, since there's been some bulldozer work on top of the mountain, we're starting to see some pretty nasty chemicals showing up in our water inside the cave. And we were told these were used by TVA, and a couple of them were banned by the EPA back in the early 1980s. But again, as TVA continues their spraying, there's going to be no vegetation, so there will continue to be erosion issues. And I know a large portion, and it's probably a little over 80 acres of the WMA has been burdened with TVA power line land. And it's unfortunate because, you know, the land was bought with Forest Legacy money, which the goal of the Forest Legacy is to grow a sustainable forest, and that's just not possible on this property.
Well, I appreciate your time and coming in, and I promise that we are going to respond to you. But I just think that today, with such short notice, we really can't comment. But we will be addressing it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
At this point in time, I'd like to call Chuck Yost, who's one of our big game coordinators who oversees the deer program, and he will begin to walk you through the big game proclamation.
Thank you, Darrell. Thank you, commissioners. The first recommendation I have doesn't have anything to do with wildlife. It's just that I recommend that Chuck Yost never be allowed to go to a Mexican restaurant right before he gives a commission speech. Pardon me for that. This, I am here to talk to you about the recommendations regarding white-tailed deer. And to begin with, I'd like to kind of give you a program overview regarding the deer and the success that Tennessee hunters have had. If you take a look at the screen here, you'll see how our deer harvest has changed over time. It grew gradually during the restoration phase, but as you can see, we're harvesting around 175,000 deer each year. And you'll notice how significant the growth was over time, and now it's stabilized, so that's all a good sign of things are headed in the right direction. There's always a lot of interest in the age structure of the bucks that we harvest, and this graphic is another example of progress over time in regards to the age structure. And hopefully I can help you fully understand this graphic. The area in green is your 1.5-year-old bucks, which, as you can see over time, that the portion of this graph that area grows smaller. And I think that most people would agree that's a good thing, and that's just an example that the buck age structure is changing and is improving, and less of the bucks that we're killing are within that 1.5-year-old age range. And the interesting thing about that is the success of that is through hunters using discretion on what they're shooting, not through regulations. So the take-home point is that the age structure is very good. And to further drive that home, I want to show you that in 2012, this graphic illustrates the age buck structure, and 44% that were harvested last year fell within that 1.5-year age range. You had 37% being 2.5 and 19% being 3.5 or older. And that's really interesting, because if you compare it to the Midwest average, and This information from 2011 actually came from QDMA, or Quality Deer Management Association's annual report. It's a 2013 report, but it shows the data from 2009 through 2011. And it shows that in the Midwest that the average it's basically right in line with what you see in Tennessee. And this Midwest category of this report actually includes Kentucky, Illinois, Ohio, Wisconsin, a lot of those states that we associate with larger bucks. So as you can see, we're directly in line with what's happening in those states. Now, in regards to public opinion, Darrell mentioned this earlier, but the question on the UT survey from 2012 was, how satisfied are you with how TWA manages the deer program? And as you can see from the graphic, the overwhelming majority are satisfied with what's happening. So more proof that things are headed in the right direction. Now, in regards to the specific recommendations, we're recommending that we add one county to Unit L. We're going to recommend increasing antlerless opportunities in some counties in Unit A and B, and then also increase opportunities to harvest red deer in Claiborne County. And we'll look at those specifically now. Crockett County is the only county that we've recommend that we change which unit it falls within. As you know, we have 3 deer units, Unit L, A, and B. And the proposal is to move Crockett County from Unit A to Unit L. And that is to increase opportunity and the antlerless harvest within those counties, or within that county. So in regards to non-quota hunts, if we are to go ahead and move Crockett County into Unit L, then obviously we would need to remove it from the non-quota antlerless deer hunts, because it wouldn't be necessary at that point. We would like to add some antlerless opportunities or non-quota hunts in Anderson, Bledsoe, Bradley, Carter, and you see the remainder of the counties there. They're all counties that fall within A and Unit B. So those would be an additional quota hunts. There are no recommended changes regarding deer bag limits. Darrell also mentioned that early. This is the table that we use these days to give people the information on the bag limits, and this would our recommendation that we stay the course with this. Regarding the calendar will be similar to last year, where we have a traditional opening date for archery the 4th Saturday in September, and then youth sportsman hunts the last weekend in October. The muzzleloading season, it would open the 3rd Saturday before Thanksgiving, and then the traditional gun opener of the Saturday before Thanksgiving. So that's how the deer season would be structured. In Claiborne County, regarding the red deer, Region 4 has proposed, and the rest of the staff has agreed that they should add a red deer free permit to harvest red deer. In the past, or this past year, it was so that they could harvest red deer during the deer season. But with this permit system, the free permit, they would actually allow the take of red deer throughout the year, but after they've obtained this free permit. And that wraps up the information regarding deer. And as far as the elk program, there's no changes recommended. I think everything's on the right track with that, so we're not recommending any changes. The only thing worth noting is that the drawing for the elk hunt, the next elk hunt, will occur in conjunction with the regular WMA drawing, rather than happen earlier in the year. It traditionally would happen in May. We're moving that to later with a big WMA drawing, and that's just simply to increase interest in that tag. And with that, that's the end of my information. Do you have any questions for me? Yes, sir.
Again, just for me to better understand, you say free permit will be issued for taking red deer. I understand red deer can be taken at any time. It says it provides a means of checks and balances. Does that mean that there's a chance that we may not issue permits? I guess, explain to me the checks and balances of what the free permit does.
Okay. I'm gonna actually ask Region 4 to address that question. Thank you.
What that is, Commissioner Cannon, is that we just want to have an idea of who is hunting, and possibly, if we want to go back to them and talk to them about where were you hunting, where were you seeing the animals, how many were you seeing, things like that. So hopefully we can get a better feel for where they're at. There are times where we're not even sure where those animals are, and we've even got a couple of our guys are trying to see if they may be able to get permission to get on a place and dart one and put a radio collar on it and kind of track it, see if they can see how it's moving and where it and maybe a second one are going. So right now it's just to get a feel for how many people are actually taking advantage of something like that, and then also if we want to have some follow-up information.
So part of the permitting process is going to have them get information back to us. And,
That's correct.
I think it's great. I just wanted to understand it a little better.
Yeah, that's
Thank you.
correct. We haven't even developed it yet, but it'll be something we do out of Region 4. They call in, they'll get the permit, and we'll get their name and some information. So if we want to send a survey out later on and get some info from them, we can do that.
Thank you so much.
Do we have landowners trying to protect them that don't want them harvested?
That's correct.
If they're a nuisance or a potential threat to the normal deer herd in the state, can we not, overrule their desire? Or?
I'm not sure, and I don't know that we want to try to go there yet. We're trying to go as incrementally as we can through all of our steps. You have some landowners that are protecting them, and then you also have an issue where they're getting into the city. The first year we hunted, there were a lot of them within the city limits, and the hunters were told that if they were in the city limits discharging firearms, they would be cited. And all of you know how that works. They can cite them whether they get convicted or not is a whole other issue. But it encouraged a lot of people not to participate in that hunt the first year. So, we had a guy call us about 3 weeks after the season. He said, "Hey, I've got permission to go on this piece of property. There's 3 or 4. Can I go kill them?" And we couldn't give him permission to do that because the season was closed. So with this system here, he would be able, if he had permission, they moved into another area, then hopefully have opportunity to take them. And there's also speculation that some of these landowners trying to protect them are feeding them during the hunting season to hold them. And I don't know if they'll want to continue to feed them 365 days. So
Do
we'll
we have
see.
an estimation of how many animals there are?
It depends on who you talk to. Some say 30, some say 60. I would say probably 45 to 50, 2 to 3 groups.
I've got on page 11 of this proclamation, page 8 of 11, I'm sorry. I'm going to need a little clarification on something or possibly amended. Several years ago, the commission passed the proclamation to allow a helper or a caller or a guide, so to speak, unpaid guide, to go with a turkey hunter on a WMA to help them. The purpose was if you had a novice that they wanted to hunt and they didn't have a place to go, they'd applied for a permit, got drawn, didn't know how to hunt, that they could take an experienced hunter with them without a gun and didn't have to have a permit or anything. And there was some confusion on Wolf River, which was ultimately Mr. Hamilton straightened out. It was fine, but about whether that could happen or not. And it's not a problem in the proclamation, except that it's allowed to be prohibited by the WMA manager. And that's not what the commission passed. So I need to, that wording could be changed where they might have to notify the WMA manager or something else, but I don't think there's an option for the WMA to not allow that. So I would ask that Darrell or whoever, and I've discussed it with Darrell and he's aware of it, and it's there and it's back in the manner and means also that, and the purpose was obviously to promote the sport. So there's some confusion on, or possible confusion on that allowance.
I believe the appropriate course of action would be next month at the May Commission, when we vote on this proclamation, when it's in committee meeting, that you make an amendment to that if you so choose to do it, and then bring it forward to the full commission, whether or not you want to change the language in that proclamation. But the May meeting would be the appropriate time to propose that.
Being that you ate at the Mexican restaurant tonight, will now be a good time for a break. I think some of us would like to have one, so we're actually gonna blame you, but let's take 10 minutes.